Did you know forgiveness is a decision? Maybe you've been holding off on letting go of some resentment and some bitterness that's in your life because you just don't feel like it. On today's podcast, we're going to talk about how you can decide to forgive and begin to experience freedom in that place. It's not excusing, it's not letting that person get off scot-free. And I can't wait for you to get the freedom that you need today on this show. Today on the podcast, I have an amazing woman of God named Carla Shelton. She is a speaker and host of the Monday Manna 1-Minute Inspirational show on YouTube. She's also author of a brand new wonderful book called Forgiveness is a Decision. Welcome, Carla. I am so excited to have you on Flourish-Meant today.
Thank you for having me, Tina.
Carla, let's talk about why forgiveness was something that was so dear to your heart and why you wanted to speak on this topic. Is it something that you've struggled with?
Absolutely. Well, we all face pain, hurt, disappointment, and we have to make a decision whether we're going to hold on to resentment or we're going to let it go. And this book was written based on my own personal journey of hurt in a workplace setting. And it just catapulted me into a pit, a pit of despair, a pit of resentment, anger, all of those things. And I had to make a decision that this was not going to be my story. So I had to move beyond that. And forgiveness gave me the freedom to release that. And this book was born.
We love that you were able to walk through this and experience freedom in your life. But I think first, it took understanding what forgiveness is and what it is not. I think that's what gets in our way sometimes. Can you talk about the difference between the misconceptions we often have about what forgiveness is and why we would hang on to our bitterness because we don't want to give in to this false idea of what forgiveness seems to be?
Well, oftentimes we think that we've forgiven someone, and then all of a sudden their name comes up in a conversation, and then we feel an ickiness in our stomach, and we know that's not forgiveness because forgiveness brings freedom. And we have to sometimes allow ourselves to forgive over and over again. And that's stated in the Bible. It says that we have to forgive 7 times 70, and that's just in one day. And that could be for one person. So we have to allow ourselves the liberty to release forgiveness more than once. And until we receive a freedom and we see that person in the grocery store or we run across them online, and then we no longer feel the uneasiness, and then we know that forgiveness has been given towards that person.
What you're saying is that sometimes forgiveness comes in layers, just like a wound. If it's a light surface wound, it might be easy to get rid of in one setting. But sometimes we have to forgive this top layer and then forgive deeper until you get to the deepest layers where that wound was and forgive all the way down to that. So it can be a process, right?
Absolutely. And the experience that catapulted me was years of verbal abuse in a workplace setting. And the more I replayed the events of that day in my head, the deeper the wound became. So I would rehearse what this person said to me and what I should have said, and I didn't. So that wound became so deep inside of me, and it turned into anger, and then from anger to a level of bitterness. The Bible says that when a root of bitterness springs up, it defiles many. So that bitterness inside of me was now impacting my family. It was impacting so many other people. So that's where we get to the layers of unforgiveness. It is a process, peeling back the layers of when it first started, and it became year after year of enduring this pain and being subject to it. So you're correct. You're absolutely correct.
Abuse is such a difficult situation, and so many have suffered under the hands, the words of other people from childhood into adulthood, in the workplace, even in the church, even in their own homes. I've worked with domestic violence victims, people who are survivors of sexual abuse, all kinds of things that we might need to forgive that are classified under that category of abuse. And that's very difficult. There comes a layer also of shame where, as you were describing, you had to forgive yourself as well. Can you talk about the difference between condoning what someone's done and forgiving them?
So, forgiveness is not giving someone a free pass, a free get out of jail pass. Forgiveness is for you, releasing you from a prison that you've harbored resentment, anger, and bitterness. And it's not about them, but it's about you receiving the freedom that God died on the cross for you to have. And I think about one of the most powerful statements that Jesus said as he hung on the cross. He said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And so that leads us, if Jesus can forgive, then surely, no matter how difficult it may be, then this is something that we need to do as well. The Bible says that when you're angry, do not sin, and don't let the sun go down on your wrath while you're still angry. And in my case, I let the sun go down many days, and I did not release this person until I started making poor decisions out of a wounded place. As a result, I decided, I told my husband, I was like, I think the Lord wants me to quit my job. Well, the Lord had not spoken to me to quit my job. It was that wounded place inside of me that was screaming out, saying, Get out of this place. You need to go on. You need to move on. But we know that when we leave one place and go to another place, that woundedness still remains inside of us. So it doesn't go anywhere, it goes right with you. I remember being in my bedroom crying out to God because my kids came home and my woundedness had impacted them. I remember my daughter came home from school and she said, We're down to one income now. And she said to me, she was like, Mom, the lady in the cafeteria said to me, if you want to eat lunch, you need to bring cash from now on. Oh my God, my heart was broken because now my children are experiencing shame and embarrassment because of my poor decisions, because of my woundedness. I'm in a prison of unforgiveness, and now it's impacting them. So at that point, I knew that I had to do something because I didn't want this to spread to my family. Like it says in the word, when a root of bitterness springs up, it defiles many. And now it was impacting children who were innocent in this situation.
Let's look at that other piece where you had to forgive yourself. Oftentimes, whether it's abuse or not, when we have a situation where someone has betrayed us, we think about, what did I do? What did I do wrong? And you begin to shame yourself for the situation. Could I have said something different? Could I have reacted different? And all of these things are in there. And sometimes what the abuse has done is turned us against ourselves, and we believe some of the verbal abuse that we've heard, and that affects our self-esteem. How did you go about that process of forgiving yourself in all of this and releasing the shame?
One of the first things that I did was I wrote down all of the negative emotions that I was feeling as a result of this situation. So, how did it make me feel? I just started writing, journaling, how it had impacted me. I went out in my backyard and I began to just speak out to the Lord. Lord, this is what it has done to me. And I ask that you forgive me and I forgive myself. And I remember releasing that outside in the sunshine, and I released that to God. And I asked God to forgive me for harboring unforgiveness and bitterness in my heart, because offenses will come, but we don't have to take them. And I took that root of bitterness, I took the bait. And so I asked God to forgive me, and I forgave myself for falling prey to those negative words that have been spoken over me. And once that happened, I began to feel a release of freedom, and it wasn't overnight, but I it was like peeling back layer after layer. And then each day I would go out in my backyard. I was like, okay, God, I forgot to tell you about this. And so it just led to more healing. And I began to read books on forgiveness. And I ran across a TV show, and this lady was on that show, and she was just saying, don't become offended. And as a result of that, that led me to getting deeper into my study of what forgiveness means, how it impacts others, and what it can do to the person that it has um, affected.
And you put a lot of this research into your new book. Can you tell everyone how they can find this book and follow you?
This book is available on Amazon.com, and it is also available through Trilogy, Barnes and Noble, wherever books are sold, it's available. You can pick up a copy.
I hope that all of you listening were equipped to seek the empowerment, the freedom, and the esteem that you will find in the process of choosing to forgive. And of course, I also hope that you will come back for the next episode of Flourishment.